MJF walked out to the ring dressed as a matador, a full matador costume, to open a world championship match. Not close it, open it. And that was somehow not even the most chaotic thing that happened on Wednesday night. Today, we are breaking down AEW Dynamite from June 3rd and WWE NXT from June 2nd. Every result, every grade-worthy moment, and what it all means heading into Forbidden Door. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly who advanced in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, which title changes did and didn't happen, and why one creative decision on Dynamite has the wrestling internet genuinely frustrated. My co-host has been all over both shows, so let's get right into it. Both nights were genuinely stacked. Like, on paper, these looked like pay-per-view cards, and for the most part, they delivered.
Let's start with AEW Dynamite, since that's the one everyone's talking about. Set the scene for us. Where was it? What was on the card?
So Dynamite episode 349 went down at the Siegel Center in Richmond, Virginia on June 3rd, airing on TBS and HBO Max. And the card was loaded, 6 matches, all singles, which is actually a little unusual. No tag matches at all. You had 2 title defenses, 2 Owen Hart Foundation tournament matches, and a couple of other singles bouts filling out the card.
6 singles matches. That's a lot of one-on-one action for a TV show.
And the in-ring time reflected that. According to F4W Online, the combined match time across all 6 bouts was 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 55 seconds. To put that in perspective, they noted that's within a minute of the full runtime of AEW's Clash in Italy pay-per-view. So you're essentially getting PPV-level ring time on free television.
Wait, a free TV episode matched a pay-per-view in total ring time? That's actually kind of wild.
Right? And there's another layer to this. AEW was going head-to-head with Game 1 of the NBA Finals that night. So the decision to open with the world title match instead of closing with it was almost certainly a scheduling move. Get the biggest match on before tip-off.
That's a smart call, honestly. You don't want your world title match airing against the NBA Finals. So walk us through the opener, MJF versus Rush for the AEW World Championship.
So before the match even starts, you get this backstage segment where Rush is cutting an intense promo with Renee Paquette. He's talking about how he'd die in the ring if that's what it takes, that this is for his people, his family, his pride. And then MJF just walks in and slaps him in the face.
Of course he does.
Security breaks it up, and then Andrade El Idolo shows up to fire Rush up, telling him to do it for his family, for the Raza, for everyone who says they can't be world champion. It was a genuinely emotional setup, and then the match is announced as no countout, which adds a whole other dimension to it.
And then MJF comes out dressed as a matador, which, I mean, that's peak MJF character work.
Peak MJF. According to the Yahoo Sports recap, he also had Justin Roberts tweak his ring introduction to take a shot at the Virginia crowd. The man is committed to the bit at all times. And then the match itself, per F4W Online, it ran 18 minutes and 30 seconds. Rush got busted open when MJF capitalized on a distraction and shoved him face first into an exposed turnbuckle. It was a brutal, physical match.
And MJF retained, right? By submission?
He did. MJF retained the AEW World Championship by submission, and the detail here is that Rush passed out rather than actually tapping out, which is a meaningful distinction in terms of how Rush is protected. He didn't quit. He just couldn't continue.
That's actually a really good way to book that. Rush looks strong even in defeat.
Exactly. And then after the match, MJF tries to keep the assault going, but Mark Briscoe runs out to make the save. MJF hits a low blow to neutralize Briscoe, but then the rest of the conglomeration shows up to even the odds. And Briscoe gets on the mic and cuts a promo about his brother Jay, about the journey he's been on, and then challenges MJF for the world title.
The Briscoe promo sounds like it was heavy. Like, emotionally heavy.
According to the Forbes recap by Rob Wolkenbrod, Briscoe talked about the passing of his brother Jay and the emotional journey from his AEW debut to where he stands today. He credited his friends for helping fill the void and restoring his love for wrestling. But then he said MJF had brought his anger and rage back to the surface, and he reminded everyone that he pinned MJF last year. So the challenge feels earned.
That's a compelling setup for a future title match. Okay, so that's the opener. What happened next on the card?
Mark Briscoe defeated Lio Rush by pinfall in a singles match that went 9 minutes and 15 seconds per F4W Online. Then Andrade El Idolo squashed DK Vandu in 35 seconds, which is the shortest match of the night by a massive margin.
35 seconds. That's barely enough time to get comfortable in your seat.
It's a statement match. Andrade is clearly being positioned as a dominant force. Then you get the TNT Championship match, Kevin Knight defending against his former tag team partner, Speedball Mike Bailey. And this one had a lot of backstory because Knight had turned on Bailey at AEW Double or Nothing.
Right, Jet Speed is no more. That breakup was a big deal.
Huge deal. And according to Raslin's data, this was only the second time Bailey had challenged for the TNT Championship, and the series between Knight and Bailey was tied 1-1 heading in. Knight retained in 13 minutes flat. But here's where things get complicated. After the match, it's revealed that Kevin Knight has joined the Don Callis family.
Oh, that's the move that Wrestling Inc. was really not happy about.
Not happy at all. The Wrestling Inc. staff piece called it, quote, the absolute wrong move for Knight. The argument is that he's fresh off a heel turn on both Darby Allin and Speedball Mike Bailey. He has all the momentum in the world to go on a solo rampage as a single star. And instead of letting that breathe, they put him in a faction that already has a ton of members.
The concern being that he gets lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. The piece specifically said the Don Callis family already has so many members that Knight risks getting buried under the group dynamic when the spotlight should be entirely on him right now. And look, the seeds were planted. Knight had a backstage encounter with Callis and Kyle Fletcher the week before, but Wrestling Inc. argued he could have formed a temporary alliance without fully joining, similar to how MJF did it not long ago.
That's a fair point. There's a difference between a temporary alliance of convenience and fully committing to a faction. One keeps your options open, the other locks you in.
And the timing is what makes it frustrating. Knight is hot right now. You want to maximize that window, not dilute it.
Okay, so that's the TNT title situation. Now let's talk about the moment everyone was waiting for, Mercedes Moné's return.
So, the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Women's Quarterfinal had Alex Windsor scheduled to face a wildcard entrant because Willow Nightingale had been pulled from the tournament due to injury. And the wildcard turned out to be Mercedes Moné, who had been away from AEW for 154 days, according to Raslin.
5 months away. That's a significant absence.
And here's the thing. Raslin's win probability model had Windsor as the favorite, going in at 61.1%. Moné was at 38.9%. So Moné winning was actually the upset outcome according to the data, and she won, advancing to the semifinals.
So she comes back after 5 months and immediately upsets the favorite to reach the semis. That's a statement.
Big statement. And the match ran 12 minutes and 30 seconds, so it wasn't a squash. Windsor got her stuff in, but Moné is back and she's already in the final four of the tournament. The match went 12 and a half minutes, so Windsor was competitive throughout.
Now, there was also a Thekla segment that sounds like it was setting up Forbidden Door in a big way.
Yeah, Thekla and the Triangle of Madness came through the crowd, and Thekla cut a promo declaring, quote, death to Stardom, not war, death. She said she'd burn Stardom to the ground if anyone from the promotion appeared in AEW. She said she was fired from Japan, and now she's targeting Forbidden Door as the event where she closes the door on Stardom forever. And then she climbed a ladder and spat on the Stardom logo on the screen.
That's a wild visual. Climbing a ladder to spit on a logo. That's commitment to a character.
She also said Sky Blue needs to win the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, and Julia Hart needs to reclaim the TBS championship. So she's essentially laying out a full faction agenda heading into Forbidden Door.
Okay, and then the main event, Will Ospreay versus Mark Davis in the Owen Hart men's semi-final. This one had a lot of history behind it.
A ton of history. Ospreay and Davis are former tag team partners. According to Raslin, this was the third time they faced each other one-on-one in AEW, with Ospreay leading the series 2-1. But the most recent match, just 42 days earlier at Dynamite on April 22nd, Davis had won. So Davis had momentum going in.
And Davis is also the current AEW national champion, right? So he's not exactly a pushover.
Not at all. Raslin had Davis at 43.9% win probability, which is actually pretty close. This wasn't a foregone conclusion on paper. But Ospreay won in 23 minutes and 5 seconds, the longest match of the night, and according to Wrestling Inc., it was described as a chaotic win. Ospreay is now in the Owen Hart men's final and has won 4 singles matches in a row in 2026 with a 7-2 record.
7-2 in 26 singles matches. That's dominant. And the main event going over 23 minutes on free TV, that's a real investment in the match.
It is. And when you look at the age stats that F4W Online put out, the average age across the Dynamite card was 34.4 years. For context, they noted that's right alongside Monday's Raw at 34.6 and above NXT's average of 29.9. So Dynamite is running with a more veteran roster while NXT skews younger.
That's actually a really interesting data point. Two different philosophies, AEW leaning on established names, NXT building the next generation.
And both approaches have merit. The veteran roster gives you the credibility and the storytelling depth. The younger roster gives you the freshness and the long-term investment. NXT's June 2nd show was a good example of that balance.
Let's get into NXT then. What happened on June 2nd?
So NXT aired June 2nd from the Capitol Wrestling Center, the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, and the headline match was Tony D'Angelo defending the NXT Championship against Cam Hendricks. According to the official WWE results page, D'Angelo retained the title.
And then Naraku showed up after the match?
Right. According to WWE's official results, Naraku signaled war with NXT champion Tony D'Angelo after the match. So the next chapter of D'Angelo's reign is already being set up. That's good storytelling. You retain the title and immediately plant the seed for the next challenger.
What else happened on the NXT card? There were a few other matches that got highlighted.
You had Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights teaming up against Dark State, OTM versus The Culling, Lexis King defending the Speed title against Romeo Moreno, and then there was the Lola Vice moment. She inadvertently knocked out Kendall Gray, which, based on the WWE highlights page, got 48,000 views on YouTube, the most of any individual clip from that episode.
48,000 views on that one clip. That tells you something about what resonated with the audience.
It does. Lola Vice is the NXT Women's Champion right now, and any moment involving her is going to get traction. The inadvertent knockout is the kind of thing that creates organic buzz, it's unexpected, it has consequences, and it raises questions about where the story goes next.
And NXT airs on the CW on Tuesdays, so it's got a different broadcast home than Dynamite on TBS. Different audiences potentially tuning in.
Different audiences, different energy. NXT has that developmental feel, even though it's clearly not just developmental anymore. These are full-time performers building real careers. And with an average roster age of 29.9 compared to Dynamite's 34.4, you're seeing a different stage of career for most of these performers.
So stepping back and looking at both shows together, what's the bigger picture here? What do these two nights tell us about where professional wrestling is right now?
I think what stands out is that both shows are building towards something. AEW is clearly on the road to Forbidden Door. You've got Thekla declaring war on Stardom, Ospreay in the Owen Hart final, Monet back and already in the semis, and MJF now potentially facing Mark Briscoe for the world title. Every segment had a direction.
And NXT is building toward whatever comes next for Tony D'Angelo's reign with Naraku now in the picture.
Exactly. And the contrast in how both shows handle their title pictures is interesting. AEW opened with the world title match, which is unconventional, specifically because of the NBA Finals competition. That's a real-world scheduling decision bleeding into the kayfabe presentation of the show. NXT closed with its title match in a more traditional structure.
The Matador entrance is still living rent-free in my head, though. MJF dressed as a Matador to fight a guy nicknamed El Toro Blanco, the White Bull. That's actually brilliant character work when you think about it.
It's layered. The Matador fights the Bull. MJF is literally cosplaying as the person who defeats Rush in the narrative. It's the kind of detail that rewards fans who are paying attention. And it worked. He retained.
And Rush passing out rather than tapping, that's the kind of booking detail that matters for long-term storytelling. Rush didn't quit. He just couldn't physically continue.
Which means Rush can come back. The door isn't closed on him as a title contender. That's smart. You protect the challenger while still having the champion win cleanish. It's a difficult balance, and they threaded the needle.
Now, the Kevin Knight situation, do you think the Don Callis family move is as bad as Wrestling Inc. made it sound? Or is there a version of this that works?
I think the concern is legitimate. The Wrestling Inc. piece made the point that Knight could have done a temporary alliance, similar to how MJF worked with the Don Callis family at one point, without fully committing. That keeps his solo momentum intact, while still giving him backup when needed. Fully joining a faction with this many members is a different thing entirely.
And the timing is the issue. He just turned heel. He just betrayed Darby Allin and Speedball. That's fresh. That's hot. You want to ride that wave, not immediately attach it to someone else's brand.
Right. The heel turn itself was the story. Now the story becomes about Don Callis, and Knight becomes a supporting character in someone else's narrative. That's the risk. We'll see how it plays out, but the skepticism from Wrestling Inc. is understandable.
Let's talk about the Owen Hart tournament picture for a second. On the men's side, Ospreay is in the final. Who's he likely facing?
The search results don't confirm the other finalist yet, but Ospreay is in. On the women's side, Monet is in the semis after beating Windsor. Thekla mentioned Sky Blue needs to win the tournament, which suggests Blue is still in contention. The tournament is clearly being built toward Forbidden Door, which makes sense as a destination for the finals.
And Forbidden Door is the AEW and NJPW co-branded pay-per-view, right? So the Owen Hart finals happening there would be a big deal.
Huge deal. And Wrestling Inc. actually noted some frustration about the lack of NJPW representation on this Dynamite heading into the co-branded event. That's a valid criticism. If you're building toward a joint show, you want to feel the NJPW presence in the weeks leading up to it.
That's a fair point. The Thekla Stardom angle is sort of adjacent to that. It's a Japanese wrestling connection, but it's not NJPW specifically.
Exactly. Thekla is building toward Forbidden Door on the Stardom side of things, which is a different Japanese promotion. So you've got the Stardom angle covered, but the NJPW side of the co-branded event still feels a little thin based on this episode.
All right, so when you step back from everything we've covered tonight, both shows, all the results, all the storyline developments, here's what this really comes down to.
AEW Dynamite on June 3rd was a genuinely impressive night of television. Over 76 minutes of in-ring action, a world title match that opened the show and delivered, a surprise return that actually landed as an upset, and a main event that went over 23 minutes. The Kevin Knight faction decision is a legitimate creative concern, but the overall show was strong.
And NXT on June 2nd kept its momentum going, with D'Angelo retaining and Naraku immediately stepping up as the next threat. The Lola Vice moment got the most traction online, which tells you the women's division is resonating with that audience.
Both shows are doing what good wrestling television should do. They're making you want to tune in next week. The Mark Briscoe challenge to MJF is compelling. Naraku versus D'Angelo has intrigue. Monet is back and already in the Owen Hart semis. Ospreay is in the men's final. There's a lot to look forward to.
And the road to Forbidden Door is getting clearer by the week. The Stardom angle, the Owen Hart tournament, MJF's reign, it's all converging.
The one thing I'd keep an eye on is whether AEW addresses the NJPW side of Forbidden Door more directly in the coming weeks. That's the piece that still feels underdeveloped based on what we saw Wednesday.
Good note to end on. MJF walked out dressed as a matador to fight El Toro Blanco, won the world title match, and then got run off by the conglomeration, and somehow Mark Briscoe is now the most compelling challenger for that belt. Wrestling is wild. That's what makes it great.
And Rush passed out rather than tapping. He didn't quit. That detail matters more than people might realize right now.
It always does. Thanks for breaking all of this down.
That's a wrap on this episode of Co-Pilot Podcasts. Full results, grades, and kayfabe context for AEW Dynamite June 3rd and WWE NXT June 2nd. We'll see you next time.